Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami Heat podcast, your one-stop shop for daily Miami Heat content. My name is Amir. You got Trent and Martell back. You guys already know who they are, but we have a very special episode because we got a special guest joining us today. We got Mark Haynes, who covers the Sacramento Kings. So, Mark, do you want to introduce yourself real quick to the audience and let the audience know where they can find some of your work?
Well, yeah, they said special guest, but it's just plain Mark Haynes. Nothing special about me. But yeah, I do live out here in Sacramento, and I cover the Sacramento Kings for the Sacramento Observer newspaper. I have a podcast called the Bleav in Kings podcast, and another one with Leo Biez and Jeremiah Salmas and other Sacramento reporters called Three in the Paint podcast. And I'm just a fan like everybody else, and I just work in the business, and I'm pleased to be here. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Again, we really appreciate your time, and we'll leave your podcast and all that stuff where folks can find you in the description on YouTube. So thank you again. So, Mark, interesting time to be both a Miami Heat and a Sacramento Kings fan with all the trade rumors swirling around De'Aaron Fox and Jimmy Butler. And so I can imagine both of our fan bases are in shambles right now as our two best players, essentially our best player, your best player, are more than likely going to be gone by the NBA trade deadline, which is next Thursday. So let's start off with De'Aaron Fox. He's been the face of the Kings franchise, and he's helped you guys make it to the playoffs after what was it, the 16-year drought. So you guys made it to the playoffs a couple seasons ago. And now we've heard a lot of reports over the last 4 or 5 days that his agent said, I suggest that you trade De'Aaron before the trade deadline. Obviously, the writing was on the wall this summer when he didn't sign his extension. Kind of similar to Jimmy Butler, except he didn't get an extension. So the writing has been on the wall. The Kings have come out basically saying, yes, we will shop De'Aaron Fox and listen for offers. But then the interesting report came out saying from De'Aaron himself, I haven't requested a trade yet. I think his wife even said that. Like, he's like, that's not coming from me specifically. You would have known if I said that. So my question to you is, what's your whole perspective on this whole situation, and what's the latest you've heard on De'Aaron Fox being moved before the trade deadline?
It's weird because very similar, it's just in different ways. But with Miami and Jimmy Butler, how messy everything is, and I'm not surprised now that it's got as messy as it has here in Sacramento with the organization. At first, De'Aaron's not on the trade market. Then De'Aaron makes some comments on the Draymond Green podcast that kind of struck up a lot of trade talks. And then when they get things going in the right direction after, firing Mike Brown, the trade rumors pop up again. And this time it seemed like it came from the Sacramento Kings, according to, what's out there right now. But I think, for me, this has just been a messy year for the Sacramento Kings, starting with, starting off the season below 500 for, the most of the first chunk of the year. And then the way that Mike Brown was fired after, essentially talking to the media and headed on in his car on his way to the airport, for a road trip, and get a call to find out he's fired. And it's just been a lot of, this doesn't seem like a cohesive team. And then not even with the team, it's just the organization. It's like nobody is on the same page. So it's been real messy. And like you mentioned earlier, De'Aaron Fox, his wife, Rasay, she, on X or Twitter, whatever we call it nowadays, she said that they never requested a trade, and neither did his agent, Rich Paul, which, everybody's kind of, covering up what they want out there and things like that. And I think it's just a really messy situation. But I think the organization, I think for Sacramento especially, and even in Miami, it's time for them to just kind of figure out something, make a decision, and move on because it's going to hurt the team.
Yep. And do you think what is your prediction? Do you think he actually will be moved before the trade deadline or by the trade deadline, or do you think this is more of an offseason move? Because again, he's going to be a kind of a rental to a certain degree. Like if he doesn't go to the Spurs, which was listed as his preferred destination, so other teams are probably going to lowball him because they know it's essentially going to be a rental unless he explicitly says, "I will sign an extension with this team." If Rich Paul can tell that to the team, but like a lot of teams are not going to be willing to give up the farm, and you guys want exactly what Miami wants because you guys don't want to rebuild at this point. You still have Sabonis,
Right.
You have Malik Monk who's going to step up now, essentially if De'Aaron Fox gets traded, and then you have, of course, you still have DeMar DeRozan and whatever pieces you can get. But you guys want win now players. Obviously, everybody wants picks, first round picks, or expiring contracts. But like, do you think it's going to happen before the trade deadline, or do you think this will be something that happens more so in the offseason?
I think the only way it happens, I do think it happens. I say that, but I think the only way it happens is if it's the San Antonio Spurs. So I feel like the San Antonio Spurs, like the ball is in their court. If they really want De'Aaron Fox, I think they can get him today if they wanted him. But if they decide, because like you said, Sacramento, they're going to ask for what they want because they're not trying to rebuild. They're not tanking. They think they have a chance to make the playoffs again, and they're heading in the right direction, aside all the outside noise. So they would want to continue to head on that trajectory, and in order to do that, they would have to get back players and pieces that they feel would make them better. And if the San Antonio Spurs want De'Aaron Fox enough and they're willing to cooperate with the Kings and give them, the guys that they're going to ask for, I think it happens before the deadline. If the San Antonio Spurs don't, I think De'Aaron Fox will be with the team for the rest of the year.
What's going on, Mark? So I have a few questions for you. I'm going to throw at you, man. So first thing first, I want to kind of talk about what DeMar DeRozan comments. I think it was yesterday. He says, I don't have much time left. I'm not trying to play another 5 years. And this is kind of going with like the De'Aaron Fox trade rumors and stuff like that. And if De'Aaron Fox does eventually get traded, like what's kind of next for the team? Like, I understand they still want to win, but they got Sabonis. They just got Monk on the extension. Obviously, DeMar DeRozan just signed in the offseason. They still want win now players, but it's like, do they, like, just in your opinion, do you think they kind of like, okay, want them to force out, like one of them want to leave? Because like you lose your best player in De'Aaron Fox. We all know he has superstar potential. Like it don't matter what you get in that Spurs deal. I just don't see them being as good as them with De'Aaron Fox. Like what's kind of next with them? Because like I think those comments stand out a lot. DeMar went to the Kings to team up with Fox and Sabonis, some sort of like that. So it's like if he's gone, like does this kind of ruin the whole like big three thing with DeMar and Sabonis? Like, do you think they want out eventually? Like, I know they're on contracts, but we all know how these NBA players now, they don't care,
Right.
So like, kind of what's your opinion on that situation?
Well, so yeah, I agree with you on when I do look at the Spurs and I look at, what you can get back, everybody makes these trade things or whatever. And I see like people, they're big on, Castle. And I'm like, these are young players who have, futures, bright futures, but they're not necessarily right now, playoff players. And so I find it kind of weird. So it definitely would put DeMar and Sabonis and those guys in a, awkward situation. But from what I'm told, I talked to some people, that's close to DeMar. From what I'm told, but obviously things can change at any point. De'Aaron Fox leaving would have nothing to do with DeMar deciding, to stay or go. That's not something I'm told he's thinking about. But yeah, those comments is, definitely, concerning to an extent. But, these players, I think, man, one thing about the NBA or whatever, it's always going to be drama. And, the players act like they hate media talking about them and fans and stuff. But I think some of them love it because, a lot of comments that come out is kind of like, you didn't have to say that. You know how, we're going to take it. But from my understanding at this moment, if De'Aaron was gone, it wouldn't change DeMar's mind on being in Sacramento.
And so, say if these rumors are true and De'Aaron wants to go to the Spurs, right? My opinion, I could be totally wrong, and maybe the future the Spurs have a brighter future than the Kings. But if De'Aaron wants to leave the Kings, if that's true, because he wants to win, why would he want to go to the Spurs in the first place? I get him and Wemby would be good, but then again, we all know the Spurs have a lot of young talent that's going to take time to grow and develop. We all know that. So it's just going to take longer for him to win. Do you see, because we're Miami, me and Amir are Miami Heat fans, we have been dealing with Kevin Durant rumors years ago, the Lillard rumors, the Beal rumors. They're favorite to go to the Miami Heat, and somehow we never land them, right? So when I see favorites, typically I don't really see it happen. It's a good chance it happens, but a good chance it doesn't happen. So, like, just in your opinion, if he doesn't go to the Spurs, he stays on the team this full year, and everything happens in the offseason, do you see like a team coming in, taking it over, like the Heat or another team in mind? Because we've seen Dame Lillard get swooped by the Bucks. We might see Jimmy get swooped by another team and he doesn't go to Phoenix. We all know how these trade rumors go. Like, is there a specific team that you see De'Aaron might get traded to? Because if he wants to win a championship, the Spurs don't make sense to me. That's just my opinion. But,
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. If he is thinking championship with the Spurs, he has to be thinking down the road. Wemby, as amazing as he is, he's going to get better. And I don't, as we see the Spurs are at the bottom half of the Western Conference right now. And I think the enticing part for De'Aaron is like, Texas is home for him, and I believe his wife is also from Texas or whatever. So I think, home is a big deal. I've also heard that he's talked to Harrison Barnes, who's over there, who, they have a good relationship still. But win now, I don't know if it's win now. Maybe he believes it is. If he's on that team, maybe he thinks he's the piece that, puts them over the top. But with how messy things are getting, and like you guys know in Miami with Jimmy, De'Aaron wants to go to the Spurs, but at the end of the day, he doesn't have a no trade clause. So end of the day, the Kings can put him wherever they feel like putting him at the end of the day. And he'll be a rental for another team more than likely. But I wouldn't, this is such a like 50-50 in every conversation about this trade. It's like, all right, well, we know he wants to go here, but then him and the Kings don't seem to have a good relationship. So why would they help him? Why would they say, all right, you basically, you don't care about us and we're going to take care of you or whatever, whatnot. So could he end up in another situation? Yes, I know he would. I know they would hate it, but in the NBA, like, and that's just what it is. Like, it's a business. We go to work. We don't get to tell our bosses, where we go work next or what we go. I'm doing this today. So at the end of the day, De'Aaron could be put in a situation where he don't want to be in for the next, year or so or whatever, whatnot. But I don't see, going back to the San Antonio deal, I don't see that as a championship now move. I think the Sacramento Kings are far from from winning a championship as well. And maybe that's kind of what he's looking at. Maybe he's looking at do I believe? Well, he has to be looking at it as, do I believe the Sacramento Kings are on the path to winning? And the Spurs right now at this moment, with that young talent, with Victor Wembanyama, they have potential. They have potential to be there. And if he wants to lead that potential, that's what I think he's kind of looking at.
Well, so then, Mark, don't you think that the Bam Adebayo factor would be huge? They were roommates in college. He was a groomsman to Fox. We have Tyler Hero, who he's an all-star. We have the best coach in the NBA. And then my second question to you is, do you think that Bam is better than Sabonis?
Do I think Bam is better than Sabonis? Yeah, I do. If I'm starting a team, I would take Bam over Sabonis. Simply because of, even though this year Sabonis has been amazing, he's been, he's been shooting the three at a high clip. Obviously, he's not a volume 3-point shooter, but over the last few years, it's been like you didn't want him shooting it at all, and he didn't want to shoot it at all. So it was kind of, rough in those regards. But I'm a big fan of Bam, so I could even be a little biased, but I know it's really close. But I really like the the reason I take Bam over Sabonis is the defensive end. On defense, Sabonis can be a huge liability basically every night, but he's going to give you near a triple-double, 16 points, 15 rebounds, and 9 assists. But at times, those stats can be, inflated or non-impactful. As for Bam on the defensive side of the ball or whatever, it's, anytime you could get a guy, especially a big man, who could play defense and guard 1 through 5 at times, that's kind of invaluable.
Yeah, but do you think that with Bam Adebayo's connection with Fox that he would come to Miami? Because Bam has to be on that phone right now. I don't understand why he hasn't been making those calls. Like I said, there's no way that they're going to be roommates in college. Okay, that was his groom. He was his groomsman in the wedding. So there's no way that he wouldn't join the Miami Heat because, like I said, Tyler Hero, he's an all-star this season. Bam Adebayo, he's one of the best two-way players, and then we have one of the best coaches in the NBA. A proven franchise, and I just think that he would be one of the missing pieces that the Miami Heat definitely need.
And Shams came out yesterday saying he does have a short list if he can't get to the Spurs. Miami and Houston are also on that. Or I don't know if it was Shams. It was someone reported.
Bam has to be on that phone, man.
Absolutely. The thing would be because it would take whatever moves that's going to be made. It's going to take a third team, and I don't believe the Sacramento Kings would want Jimmy. So that would kind of be the thing. But it makes a lot of sense for De'Aaron Fox if he went to Miami. Go team up with Bam. You keep Tyler Hero. You guys, like you said, all those things about Miami, Spoelstra and everything. Then also something I know players care about is making all-star games, which nobody from the Sacramento Kings did this season. But he has a better chance in the East to make an all-star than playing for Spurs or Houston or whoever he goes to in the West. So for him personally, getting out East, it makes sense. It makes sense for a lot of people when it comes to, Miami, because, Miami got the taxes and stuff like that or whatever. So I wouldn't be surprised if that would be a team on his list that he wants to go to. But again, with the Sacramento Kings, cooperate and help him get in there. But yeah, Bam got to be in that group chat right now, trying to get him over there. I know him, Malik, and De'Aaron all have a group chat, so they got to be talking about it.
Yeah, you mentioned also, Jimmy to the Kings. I think the Kings just came out yesterday saying they don't want to acquire Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler, I think the Kings are the second team reported that he doesn't want to go to. He's been, for some reason, saying no Memphis. Initially, when he asked for the trade, it was like, get me out of here, anywhere but Miami. Then it became only the Suns because obviously the owner of the Suns, Matt Ishbia, basically said, we'll extend you if we can get off Bradley Beal somehow, which is unfortunately probably the worst contract in sports because he's getting paid the 5th most in the NBA today. And I mean, due to injuries, right? And some of it is age. He's on the wrong side of 30 for some guy who's injury prone. He is nowhere near a top 5 player. Like he's probably top 35, 40 now at this point, right? That might be generous. So the Kings don't want Jimmy. That's fine. if the Miami Heat want to acquire Fox, we might have to obviously get some assets from Jimmy from a third or fourth team, whatever it may be. And our hope, I'm assuming, leveraging the Bam relationship like Martel was talking about, and then flipping those assets. If it could be a first round pick, a Bruce Brown type of player who's a solid player on an expiring contract. If it's a Kelly Olynyk or whoever it may be, a Colin Sexton type player, maybe that could be enticing for the Kings. But my question to you, though, Miami Heat channel, obviously, we haven't really talked about the latest with Jimmy Butler. You said it's likely that Fox gets traded, but there is a world where he doesn't until the offseason. I don't see a world where Jimmy Butler plays in a Miami Heat uniform again. He's been suspended 3 times now at this point, and it's indefinitely. So I think he's gone. But from your opinion, Bradley Beal has a no-trade clause. It seems like there's no market for him. He wants to go to the Suns. We're trying to accommodate that, but it doesn't seem likely. Where do you think Jimmy Butler goes? Like, what are a few teams do you think will actually pull the trigger and acquire Jimmy before the deadline?
Well, see, there's talk with what the Warriors going on with Jimmy, and they I think it was conflicting reports too about what Steph and Steve Kerr said about him, or how they feel about him, or whatever, whatnot. But I do think it's really bad. I was looking at I forget who podcast it was, and they were kind of talking about Jimmy and what this means for the league. And I think this has been a very, ugly situation dealing with, you had, from the start, you had Shams come out, Jimmy wants to trade. You have Jimmy's agent, nah, he doesn't want to trade. And then you having the drama on the court and, in the locker room or whatever, whatnot. Then Pat Riley comes out and says, he's not tradable. And, just the back and forth, the suspensions, the 3 suspensions in one season is crazy. And but I definitely I can't imagine Jimmy back in a Miami Heat jersey this year or anytime. But the thing is, now he's going to walk around with, which he's always had a stigma on him of being difficult. And this is another situation where this has been the worst situation of his career. Obviously at the time, and I'm trying to think of which moment. Not Philly,
Minnesota.
Minnesota. Yeah, the practice. You got that, and that's it's public, but it's public on the side of people telling the story, or them talking about it or whatever. But this is public, and the Miami Heat are public with it. Jimmy Butler is public. He, basically requested a trade on the podium after a game, which was wild. So just a whole lot of crazy things. And I'm concerned with if any team would really want to deal with Jimmy being an older player. He's still, obviously, he's talented enough to play anywhere. But our team's going to start, especially, he's not going to want to go to, when he said anywhere, that's just not true. Nobody wants to go to Brooklyn right now. Nobody wants to be in, any of the teams at the bottom or whatever. So that's not true. But will any team that has something to play for this year, will they be interested in taking on Jimmy and what could potentially come with Jimmy? I don't know. But yeah, that's a tough one, because I really like Jimmy, and I want to see him, back playing, and just even if none of this stuff was going on, him with Miami, it sounds like a perfect fit, but it just isn't. And I wonder if other teams are going to feel the same way.
Yeah, this is my last question, and it's going to be a quick one for you. The All-Star reserves came out last night. Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. Any specific subs that people that you thought should have made? I thought LaMelo Ball should have been an all-star starter, not a reserve. And when he wasn't the starter, I knew he wasn't going to make the reserves. Some people have said that Tyler's reserve over Trae Young and LaMelo Ball. Then you got the West, Jalen Williams being an all-star reserve, which he's balling, but I didn't think he should make the all-star game. You got Sengun, like any specific player you wanted. Your boy Fox wasn't an all-star this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like any snub that you was like, how the hell did he make it? But he did not.
Let's see. That's gonna be a fun one. So let's start out East, and I'm with everybody in the Eastern Conference. So I figured LaMelo would get snubbed, being in Charlotte, even though he's having a great year. But I was just like the other day, I was talking to one of my friends, and he was like, well, LaMelo's, he's in Charlotte. He could shoot the ball whenever he wants. He could do whatever. Like, he don't have to this. And I'm like, yeah, but he's still good. He's still balling. And then, but I thought him and Trae Young should have been all-stars. Now, that means I have to take people off. I would have to move y'all guy. I would have to move him out.
Hey, be real. We like honesty.
I have to move Tyler out. I thought, like, I'm with you. I thought LaMelo would have got the start. I didn't think the coaches and players would vote against him or whatever. I think he's the first ever player to. Oh, nice. Y'all working it. But I think he was the first player ever to get the most fans votes and then not, make the all-star period. So, that in itself, is weird. But out West, Darius Garland.
I got you out West. I got you out West.
It's so tough. That East is tough, but I think Trae and Melo should have been in it. But out West, I thought Jalen Williams deserved it. I thought he's the only player that's kind of like really a two-way guy, and he's been great on defense this year. But when we say Sacramento All-Stars, although I think De'Aaron Fox is the best player on this team, I thought Domantas Sabonis should have deserved a spot over Fox. I thought he should have been the only All-Star. I actually thought when I predicted my lineup, it was two things that I didn't have planned in this reserve. And it was I thought Jaren Jackson or Alfred Sengun would be the odd man out. I thought Sabonis would be in, and I thought Norman Powell would be over James Harden. So I thought I didn't think I had Sabonis in, and I had on my list I had Alfred Sengun out, not because I thought he's he didn't deserve it or anything like that, but they like to look at players and say he's young, he'll get there eventually. But I did not have James Harden on my list. I had Norman Powell over him, and I had Jaren Jackson out for Sabonis. No, Sengun. My bad. I had Sengun out. Sabonis was Sengun. I had Norman Powell for James Harden. That's what it was. So I think them was my two biggest snubs.
Yeah, now it's for sure going to be interesting. Man, last thing I will say is, I think they look at record, so I think that's why Harden made it, because he been carrying without Kawhi. And Jackson has been lightening up without Ja for a little bit. But we do appreciate you.
Also, wait, Trent, one last thing too. I was noticing this trend in the East. No team that is outside of the top 8 had an all-star. In the West, the West is so deep. You have the OGs like Kevin Durant and Steph. The Suns are the 9th seed. Kevin Durant starting. The Warriors are the 11th seed. Steph Curry starting. Victor Wembanyama is 12th seed, but Victor's the freaking future of the NBA. So, it's interesting, though, in the West, 3 guys that were out of – I don't count the play-in, right? Outside of the top 8 literally made it. In the East, 3 of them are from the Cavs, which I think is a little too much, I guess. I mean, you got Garland. Mitchell has to make it. I don't know about – I mean, Mobley's playing really damn good basketball, too. I guess I get it. I get that more than adding a Trae The LaMelo piece might be a little harder. Trey's already been an All-Star multiple times, so that was one interesting thing I noticed as well. As the trend in the West was more non-playoff teams had more All-Stars. But anyway,
they got integrity in the East. That's what's going on.
Yeah. I think Allen should have made it too, but I don't know.
Yeah,
can't have four.
Yeah.
What was the last time a team had 4? The Hawks back in the day.
Cavs are great.
Horford. What was it? Josh.
Is it Josh Smith or Joe Johnson?
And Joe Johnson or something. That was the last time, right? The team had 4.
Yeah,
something like that.
It was a Paul.
Or no, the Warriors. The Warriors. Oh, the Warriors. It was the Warriors. Clay, KD, Steph, and Draymond.
Mm-hmm.
That's the second time. Anyway, thank you so much, Mark. We really appreciate you hopping on the show. And also, before we hop off, do you want to remind the audience again, real quick, where they can find your work?
Okay. Thank you guys, man. I appreciate y'all for having me. We definitely got to collaborate. Anytime you guys want, or whatever, whether my channel, your channel, whatever. But you can find me on Instagram or any social media platform under Mark Haynes NBA. I have a podcast you can subscribe to, the Bleav in Kings podcast with the Bleav Podcast Network. The 3 in the Paint podcast, where we talk about everything NBA. So that's where I'll probably be reaching out to you guys to have y'all on that one. And yeah, man. Again, just thank y'all for having me on or whatever. And I look forward to doing it again.
We'll have you back on when Fox gets traded to Miami. So, bam, get on the phones. Any last words, Martel? Martel, you there still?
Hey, there, but keep liking, keep sharing, keep subscribing. And yeah, we love y'all.
Take care.